all of the important information that you might need is in one place. It's like the ultimate diary for your crafting. Hi, my name's Mark and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Mark. I love to knit, sometimes I crochet, and I love to make sweaters. I sat down in a recent video to show you most all of my sweaters that I've made. I tried them on, I walked you through the pros, the cons, what it was like to make them. So today, following up to that sweater video, I'm going to be talking about how to post those projects to Ravelry. If you're already a Ravelry user, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and if not, stick around to find out more in this video. Let's get into it. Let's start with a brief introduction to Ravelry. Ravelry is a pattern database with over 1 million patterns, things for knitting, crochet, weaving. Several of those patterns are free. The other patterns are paid patterns, but it's a database where you can keep track of things you like, things you've made, or if you're a designer, you can put your own patterns up there. Step 1, create your Ravelry account if you don't already have one. It's completely free to do. I save my password to Ravelry because I never remember what my passwords are. That way I can just log in each time I use it from my phone, iPad, or computer. And then after that, you can start looking around, doing pattern searches. I have a couple of Ravelry videos already breaking down how to filter those searches, how to navigate your way through the platform. So this is another one of those videos today. A lot of people ask me, how do I get my own pictures? How do I get my own projects posted on Ravelry? And it feels a little bit tricky if you're doing it for the first time. So let's break it down. I've got Ravelry opened in front of me on my computer. And you'll see here, I'm just at the home page. So there's a tab for patterns, yarns, community, support, and then an advanced search. So I'm going to go over to sort of my personal section on the right side. You'll see my picture that I've uploaded. And I want to look at my projects. So it's going to be under my notebook. If I hover there, we'll see projects, queue, stash, handspun, tools, favorites, and library. So we're going to projects today. This page is going to show me all of the projects, all the finished or in progress projects that I've chosen to upload to Ravelry. None of this happens without me clicking and choosing to do it. So you'll see I have a very sad, a very thin project page. I've got 7 projects total, and of those 7, only 5 of them have pictures uploaded, which means I probably only put in information for 5 of those projects. So under the 2 that are incomplete, we have the painting bricks sweater and then something fishy. I remember I made the something fishy project during another Ravelry video just to show you how to start a project. The painting bricks sweater is one that I want to upload today. I've taken some pictures of me in the sweater and I want to put them up so that other people can see my project example, so that all of my notes are saved here on Ravelry. Now, I'd like to do this from scratch just to show you how it works, so we're going to delete this. So in case you put up a project or start a project and it's a duplicate or something you've abandoned and you just don't want it sitting there in your projects, this is how you delete a project. There'll be 3 dots here that give you project options. If I click on that, I can edit the project, I could add or remove pictures, I could look at the comments on it. I want to delete the whole thing. So I'm going to click that. Am I sure I want to delete it? Yes, because there's nothing there. Okay, so now I'm down to 6 projects. So let's go in and add the painting bricks sweater from scratch, and we'll talk about how to upload all the information you want to share and how to get your pictures there. So there are 2 ways we could go about doing this. The first way, I think, is a little bit complicated, but we'll walk through that just so you know. The second way, I think, saves a little bit of time and is more self-explanatory. So the first way, we're under My Projects, whatever your projects tab is, and we want to add a project. Then it's going to ask me which craft, crochet, knitting, loom knitting, machine knitting, weaving, or spinning. knitting in this case, name your project. This is whatever you want to call it. So I could call it Mark's Painting Bricks Sweater. You could say whatever makes sense to you to remember which project this is. And then it asks, did you use a pattern? Yes, I did. Enter the pattern name, Painting Bricks Sweater. And then it says I didn't use a pattern, or the pattern that I used is not in Ravelry. So if you've done something, you've created your own pattern, or you've used a pattern that maybe comes from a book, sort of an older book, or it's been passed down to you and it's just not something that's available on Ravelry, it's not listed under any of the pattern search results on Ravelry, you could click that it's just not on Ravelry. Most likely, if you're making something that's been published by someone anywhere in the world, it might be on Ravelry already, so we can search for that later. So now I'll continue, and because I typed in Painting Bricks Sweater, which is what the sweater is called, it took me to the correct pattern. So that's the link now to Stephen West's pattern for the sweater. So I could say, yes, I'm going to choose this pattern. That's the one. The reason we do that is so that when people look at my project, if they see my picture of the sweater and they like it, they maybe want to make it for themselves or just go look at the pattern details, now I've linked the actual pattern to my post. I've connected the two so that people can click, and with one click, get to the actual pattern and find out more information. Now let's take a look at what I think is the easier way to do this. I'm just working my way backwards, we're undoing what we just did, and instead I'll go back to the home page of Ravelry. Here, I can search for the sweater that I've made or whatever I've finished, which is Painting Bricks Sweater. And that takes me to the project page. Now that I'm here on the pattern page, I can choose to cast on the project, which is going to add it to my projects. So over here on the right side where you could put it in your favorites, add it to a queue, share the project, you can choose here, Cast On Project. And when I choose that, it's going to allow me to name the project. So it will give you just the name of the pattern to start. I'm going to change that again to Mark's Painting Bricks Sweater with an exclamation point. And then I create the project. That has saved me the step of having to type in the pattern name exactly as it's listed on Ravelry, and it automatically links my project page to the pattern listing on Ravelry. This can come in handy if the name of your pattern is lengthy or it gets jumbled in your head. Also, if it's harder to find on Ravelry, if it's something that has a really common name that gives you lots of results, you can do the same thing by going into your favorites and then clicking on the project listing there and doing the same thing. Cast on project, it will link it all together, and then you can start adding your project information. Now that we've looked at two ways to start your project page, let's go in and add some information. Now that we're here, you'll see right now it's pretty bare. We've got the name we chose, we have the link to the actual Ravelry pattern, and then it automatically fills in the craft and the category because, again, that comes from the pattern listing on Ravelry. So let's edit this. I can go over here to the right, once again, to Edit Project. And as we edit, we're also going to add photos. So let's just start from the top. It was made for me. Link to the Raveler. That's if you're making this for someone else who has a Ravelry account, then I could say I made it for my friend Megan, I could link her account. But in this case, it was for me, so I don't need to link it to anyone. Now, it has some information about when you made it. You can put in the date that you started the project, you can put in the finish date, you could leave those blank, you could do one or the other. I do think I have this information, so I'm going to check my notebook where I sometimes, very rarely, write down information about my projects. And in this case, I don't remember exactly when I started and finished this sweater. I think I could dig through some of my pictures and see when I took pictures of the yarn, when I had pictures of me first trying it on, or when I first blocked it, but it doesn't exactly matter to me when I started and finished, so I might leave that blank. Now for the size made, I do have that written down. I made a 3XL. And in this case, I made the adaptation of using a different yarn weight than the yarn suggested or recommended in the pattern. So I normally wear a 2XL. In this case, I made the 3XL because I was using a lighter weight yarn, so my gauge was off. So I did that to adjust, and I'm happy with how it fits now. So that's an important thing I want to include in my listing, because if someone were to find my pictures of the project here, or they find the project through watching one of my YouTube videos, they might want to make it in a similar way, or at least they might want to know what I did to adapt the pattern as I worked. And if I made no adaptations, I can put that. I can leave everything blank, or I can just say, I followed the pattern as is and it worked out perfectly. But if you ever find yourself making some sort of change, maybe the sleeves were way too long or way too short, and so you had to add fabric or take away or change the rate of your decreases, anything like that could be really helpful for someone else to know when they're considering a project. Also, if the pattern you're working has sort of misleading information or errors, it's really helpful to say something like that. So if it was not a walk in the park, a piece of cake to make whatever project you've made, I think it's good to put that in the information for your project listing, just to say this project was a little bit more involved than I expected. That might save somebody else the headache or help them know what to look for when they dive into the project. So we're putting our projects up for a few different reasons. For me, it helps me keep track of what I've made. I'll remember what yarns I used, what size I made. It's just good to know. 2, it's a way to share the projects. If other people on Ravelry might see what I've made, they might enjoy seeing my projects. They might be inspired to make something similar, or it might just give them a little more context of who I am and what I like as a crafter. Another reason I like to do this is to give people a heads up if there are any issues you've had with a project. I think that's one of the biggest things that makes these project pages so helpful on Ravelry. When we look at a pattern, we can go to the projects tab of any Ravelry listing, and we can see regular people, other crafters, not people who tested the pattern, not people who were paid to review it or say something good about it, just regular crafters. We can see their experience. So it always helps me. I always have a glance through these project pages to see what people's projects look like, to see what yarn, what colors they used, and then to see if it looks like it fits decently, if it looks like it's supposed to look from the actual project results. Sometimes the way projects are photographed, they might try to hide or disguise certain imperfections or less ideal qualities of that project. So looking at someone's pictures who is not affiliated with the designer or the company or the yarn producer can be a really helpful way to gauge whether or not a project is worth starting. So that's my little soapbox. All right, let's continue adding information to this project. So I put in the size, the craft is already there, the category, I thought that was already there, clothing, sweater, pullover. And then I could add tags. I've never added tags before. I guess your tags could be about anything. They could be about the yarn, they could be about the designer, they could be about the type of garment. I don't know. Needles. So I did change my needle size because I adapted the pattern. So in this case, I think it's important for me to put what needle size I used because I used a different weight of yarn. So I do have that written down. Sometimes I write these things down on my phone in a note just because it's really close to me as I'm working my projects. Sometimes it makes its way into a notebook. So in this case, this is an older project that I'd finished. I do have things written down in a notebook. So let me see exactly what I used. Here I used a 3.75 millimeter needle for the body of the sweater and a 3.5 millimeter needle for the ribbing. So I'm going to say 3.75 millimeter. And I'm also going to add the 3.5 millimeter. And I might say in the description box that I use the smaller one, of course, for the ribbing, the larger for the body. Gauge. Oh, now, it would have been so helpful if I had written down my gauge. I could probably figure it out in reverse based on the resulting size of the sweater, looking at the stitch count for the size I made, and then doing a little bit of math. I don't remember off the top of my head, so I'm going to skip that for now. Yarn. I do remember what yarn I used. I used Sweet Georgia Tough love sock. So now it's going to ask me if I want to link to that yarn. Yes, if I can make it easier for someone else to just click through and get to the same yarn I used to have a look, why not? So Tough Love sock. And I used several colors. For the body, the background color, I used Cauldron. I don't remember the dye lot, so I'm going to skip that. If you're doing this at the beginning of your project, if you've just purchased the yarn, if you're just casting on, that's a really good time to start the project page. Clearly, I don't do that because I haven't posted many of my projects to Ravelry. But if you really want to be organized, you buy the yarn or it comes from your stash, you wind it up, you get the needles, you do your gauge swatch, you're ready to start. Make the project page. Go ahead and put what size you're making, what needles you're using, the colors, the dye lots. I mean, why not? If you ever need to go back and repair or fix or change something, then all of the important information that you might need is in one place. It's like the ultimate diary for your crafting. All right, so the rest of that information is there. I could also put the quantity. Now, I know for my contrast colors, I used 1 skein of each. I didn't need more than 1 skein. I probably only used a third of each of those skeins, maybe 35 or 40 grams of each of the contrast colors. The body color, I know I used a few. I think I probably used 4 or 5. So I think I'm going to put 5. Because if somebody is looking and they need to know how much yarn to buy and they're making the same size as me or a similar size, I don't want to put too little. So I'm going to put 5 there, but I think I only used 4. But that's okay. I purchased it at my local shop, Around the Table Yarns, and I want to link that. Yes, that's it. So I'll click that again. Purchase date, I don't know. The total paid, I don't know. Whatever it costs. Okay, and then I can add another colorway. And it says copy and add another colorway. So if you're using multiple colors of the same yarn, the same brand of yarn, it can copy that information. If not, you could put in the other type of yarn you used. But I think it's helpful if you remember what you used or you have a general idea, at least of the brand, put it down because people want to know. When they're looking through the project examples, if they really like your project, it's helpful for them to know what kind of yarn did you use. And so even if I didn't have the colors written down for this sweater, I would put Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock because I know that's what I used. And then the colors can just be a guessing game, but at least somebody knows the general fiber content and the producer. So the next color was Trinket. Great. And here I only used, let's say, 0.5, even though I used less. Let's say 0.4. And we want to copy and add another colorway. The next color I used was Dreamboat. Same thing, 0.4. The next color was Ginger. And then Cayenne. Now, I think I had one more color, and by the time I was writing down information about this sweater, I couldn't find what the color was, and it might be one of the discontinued colors, so I'll leave that blank. And if somebody wants to recreate this exactly, they can just find a color that looks like it suits the rest and fills the gap. Okay, now time for the project notes. So I think project notes, besides the type of yarn used and the size, and if you put the yardage down, that's all really helpful because it lets people know how much they realistically need to buy. The project notes are super helpful. This is where we're going to say, I would make this again. This is where we'll say the sizing didn't work out, even though I got gauge. If there were issues, like a surprise in the pattern that was not a good surprise, put it here. This is really helpful for people to know what you thought, what your experience was as a regular, everyday crafter. So I'll start by saying, in general, this was an enjoyable project. Read below for one major disappointment. Because there was one major disappointment that really threw me off, and it's something that I would definitely do differently if I made this sweater again. So I want to make sure to say it here. I'll start by saying I adapted the yarn, or I adapted the pattern for fingering weight yarn. I wanted a lighter weight sweater, and I wanted to work out of Sweet Georgia Tough Love sock. I used a 3.5 millimeter needle for the ribbing and a 3.75 millimeter needle for the body of the sweater. I made one size larger than I would normally wear, and that resulted in the correct, or the appropriately sized sweater for me. And I think that's all I need to know, or all I need to share there. I will say I was disappointed with the size of the neck opening. Oop. It's embarrassing to have you all watch me spell and type in real time, so thank you for your grace. I was disappointed with the size of the neck opening. I ended up going back in and adding a few more rounds to close it up. And here's the biggest thing. I'll say the seam for the color changes and beginning, oh my goodness, around occur in the center back of the sweater. You'll see this in my pictures. I wish, I'll say wish in all caps because I really do wish, I wish the seam had been placed along the back shoulder and later under the arm. It was very challenging to try to disguise the seam, and I didn't realize where it would be placed based on the initial cast on and short row shaping. If you make this sweater, consider moving the beginning of round to a more discreet place. All right, so I think those are my notes. I don't have anything else over here that I wrote that really stands out. It was an enjoyable project to make. I like wearing the sweater. I think it fits me well. The only issue was really where that seam was placed, and then the slight issue of the size of the neck opening, but that's really common. If I'm making a larger size of something, the neck openings are usually enormous, so I play that by ear and I adjust it as I go. And then this is a nice option. If you have something you want to say about the project that you don't want other people to read, you can add a private note. So I could add notes here, I don't know, talking about sizing or fit or a technique that I adapted that maybe is just something that only I need to know, or something I don't want other people to know. I don't want it to be public knowledge. So you could add private notes. Everything we added is for the benefit of other people who might make this project. Then I can save changes. Now, I haven't added my pictures, so that's the other big thing we want to make sure to do. So let's add some photos. Here, there are a couple of different ways to do it. Looking on the computer, you'll see we can upload from the computer. We could choose the files one by one, or drag and drop images. We could link to an Instagram account, link to Google Photos, Flickr, or from a URL. So if you had photos on your desktop, you could click them, drag them, and drop them right here, and it's going to upload them, and you can select to add them to the project. I went through and I linked my Google Photos because I have my sweater pictures sort of gathered, narrowed down into different albums so that I can put them up on the Ravelry page. So let's start with that. If you've linked your Instagram or you've linked your Google Photos or anything else here, it's pretty straightforward to add these pictures. So I'll click on Google and it should load my pictures. So these are all of the pictures from my camera roll. I did narrow it down. So under all photos, I'm going to click and then scroll to my painting bricks album. All right, now that I've clicked that, I have a much smaller group of photos that's come up, and these are the pictures I'm going to choose from to add to the project. There's no, well, I was going to say there's no limit. There's probably some sort of limit, but you can add a lot of pictures. You can add 10, 20 pictures, and it's helpful. If you have pictures, if you've had somebody photograph you wearing the project or holding the project, if you have different angles, if you have it when it's laying flat, if you have pictures from the progress along the way, I think it's all helpful to add. If people just have one picture and it's just straight on them wearing the sweater, it is helpful to see it, but sometimes we want to see more. We might want to see what the back looks like to see if you had the same seam issue that I had or something else along those lines. So let's see, I think if I click them in the order I want, it will add them in the order I want. So I'll start with that one because I think it's a nice opening photo. And then I'll do my full body picture. And maybe it's going to put these in reverse order. We'll find out. And then I've got a close-up. Then I've got the back. I've got a couple progress pictures, so I'll add those in as well. And then I've got a picture with my friend Constantine. And I don't think I need those last two pictures. So now that all of those have been selected, I can choose Finished with Photos. And here they are. And yes, it put them up in reverse order. So I don't want that. So let's edit and get those in the right order. We're going to go back to Edit Project. And here it says drag a photo to rearrange. I want that to be first, second, third. So now I know. In the future, I'll put these up, I guess, in reverse order. Click the last picture I want and then work my way to the first. So there's my opening picture, full body, zoomed in, the back, and then I wanted progress pictures. And then we end with Constantine. So there we go. Now when this result comes up under project examples, that's the first thing they'll see, which I think is nice. Then they could click through and see a little bit more of the sweater. There's the back seam. Oh! I wish it were not in the back, alas. Okay, so I think that's the easiest way to add those photos. Let's look at how to do it if the photo were not linked through Google Photos or Instagram. So under Update Photos, if I go to Upload from Computer, then it gives me the option to choose a file. So if getting pictures from your phone to the computer seems complicated, one thing I like to do is take the picture on the phone. If you have one picture, two pictures, three pictures, however many, you can select them and then email them. Add them as an email, send them to yourself. You can send them to yourself from your same email account, and then they're on your computer. Open your email on your computer, they're there. You could drag them in from the drag and drop option, or if that doesn't make as much sense to you, you can download those pictures from the email or have someone help you download the pictures. Once you've downloaded them to the computer, here's how you get them to Ravelry. We have Upload from Computer. It will ask you to choose files. When you click on that, it will give you all of these options from your computer. I like to choose the downloads category, and then my pictures should be right there. If you've named the pictures or you know what the file name is, you could also search for it. Click the file, click open, click continue, and it's going to open it up for you to add to your Ravelry page. So the more simple of the two ways is to just link your photos so that you can sift through them, click the pictures you want, they're all there. But if that seems like a hurdle to get that connected, or you're just not interested, you can do it file by file, and an easy way to get them to your computer is just to email them from your phone. Now that we're finished with the photos, let's finish up this project page. We've done just about everything we need to do, but if you look here on the right, you'll see the status is in progress. So I want to edit that. This is completed, it's finished. The happiness. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm going to give it an almost completely happy because there were a couple issues that made me less happy. Started, I don't remember. Completed, I'll put a general date. I know I completed it in 2023 or 2022. Let's say I completed it in October of 2023. Now I can save those changes. And there's that. Something else we can do here as we are finishing the project page is to give the actual pattern a rating. This is something else that's really helpful for others who might stumble upon your project page and they want to know what you thought. So as I scroll down about this pattern, my overall rating, I'm going to give it a 4. It was a pretty good pattern. Again, I hated where the seam was put, and I didn't like that there was no heads up about the seam. My clarity rating, it was super clear. I didn't stumble over things as I did it. Difficulty rating, it was not a difficult sweater, so the higher you go, the more difficult it is. If I scroll down, I'll say it was not a piece of cake because there were sort of beginner or advanced beginner techniques like short rows, working in the round. I mean, things that aren't terribly complicated, but you might not have tackled them if you haven't done garments before. So, excuse me. So I'll say that this was, I'll say it was easy because it was not difficult, but it was not a piece of cake. So there's our easy. And then I can give the yarn a rating. I love this yarn. So this yarn gets a 5-star. And now we can see my whole project page. Mark's painting bricks sweater with my pictures running down the left side. It's got the information, the size I made, the needles I used, how much yarn I used. And then my notes. I think that's exactly what I want to share. So this is complete. Now that we've done that, let's do one more project. We'll sort of speed through this one. So I'm going to go to the Maya cardigan. And I don't have fantastic pictures of this, but I've got a few, so let's go ahead and add it. I'm going to cast on the project, and I'm going to call it Mark's First Cardigan, Maya cardigan. So here we are. Let's start editing this project. Made for me. The size made. I don't remember, so I'm not going to have as much information on this one, unfortunately, but I still want to post it. Knitting. It was a sweater. A cardigan. The needles, I used whatever needle was called for in the pattern, so I'm not going to add needles, hoping that people will know that I made it using the regular needles. The yarn, I used Scout from Kelborn Woolens. I'm going to go to aroundthetableyarns.com and search for Scout, and I bet I can tell what colors I used by looking at them. Okay, 215 Cinnamon Heather is one of them. I know I used Navy Heather. I know I used Natural. So there we go. Project notes. This was a great sweater to make. Super straightforward pattern. The charts are easily memorized as you work. I made the sweater out of a heavy DK weight rather than Aran, but I kept the recommended needle size from the pattern. This resulted in a very lofty cardigan with lots of drape. I'm super happy with it. Steeking was fun. I chose to needle felt my steek, and the Scout wool has held up extremely well. Okay, I don't know if I have anything else to say. Because my gauge was slightly off, I made a larger size than needed. However, the ending result was still too big for me. I shaved away some of the excess fabric during the steeking process. I definitely recommend this pattern to anyone looking for a timeless colorwork cardigan. Okay, I think those are all the notes I need to add. And while we're here, we can go ahead and do this stuff. Finished. I was super happy, no issues here. It's finished. I don't remember when I started it. I don't remember when I finished it. Sometime in 2023. I'm going to say I finished it in June. I don't know. 5 stars, 5 stars. It was not difficult. Because of the color work, I'm going to say it was medium, because color work is a fairly involved technique to do it well with decent sized floats. And again, very happy with the yarn. Let's add our photos. For the pictures, we'll go to Google again, and I have another album I've created with some of these Maya photos. Let's start with a good front image, full body. Oh, I forgot I need to go in reverse order. Trash, trash. So reverse order, let's finish with, well, I don't want to put that progress picture because it's scary. So let's finish with pictures of friends, full body, and then the opening picture. Great, so we've got the opening picture, full body example, and then 2 pictures here. And we'll save it. Okay, Mark's first cardigan, the Maya cardigan. And then Ravelry asked me, would I like to rate the pattern in the yarns? Yes, please. So it's got what I put in here. What are 3 adjectives I would use to describe this pattern? I would say engaging, classic, I don't know, well written. What are 3 adjectives I would use to describe Scout? I'm going to say soft, because it is very soft for a non-superwash wool. Adjective 2, great color range. And adjective 3, I'll say work horse. Okay. So that's all done. The last thing I wanted to share with you before we leave this Ravelry video is how to post one of these pictures, now that we've put them up on Ravelry, into a thread, into a community thread or a forum or a discussion board thread. If you're doing the sea glass make along with me, you might be posting your progress pictures, your color pictures to one of these forums, and I've had a few people reach out and ask, how do I get my pictures there? So I wanted to address it in one of these videos. So now I'll go to these tabs here at the top of Ravelry, to community, and I'm going to go to groups, and I'm going to make my way to my group for the Sea Glass Make-Along. Now that we're here, we'll go to Forum, and we can see all of the different discussion boards going on. So if I want to post my own picture here, I can go to any of the posts listed, but sometimes I just go to the very first post of the thread to catch up with everything. And once I'm here, on the right side, I can click Reply to Thread. That's going to give me a text box where I could post what I want to share. And if I want to post a photo, there are all these icons here at the top. And so I'll go to this one. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what it is, but when I hover over it, it says Image. Once I click that, I could choose to use an image from anywhere online, or I can use a photo that's already on Ravelry. So if I've posted a picture to one of my projects, I can choose that here. So I'll use a project or stash photo. Then it's going to show me all of my pictures that I've ever posted as part of my project listings. It's really easy then to just click, use this photo, and then post the reply. It's written here in code, so don't be alarmed. Whatever's there is fine, and then you can post the reply, your picture will show up. So let's look at what happens if we want to upload a picture directly from our computer. I'll click on the same image button, and then I'll scroll down and click on Upload an image from your computer. And then it's going to give us this message. Uploading directly to forum posts, comments, and private messages costs $5 for 1 year. So if you want to work around that, and they tell you here, if you'd like to share your project or stash photos, you can do that for free. So that's why we want to get our pictures onto a project page first, and then we can post them to these Ravelry groups, to message boards, to comments for free. So if you want to pay for that and do it from your computer, you can, but it's not necessary. So I'll leave that, and I'll show you once more. We click on the image button, use a project or stash photo, and it will automatically bring us to all of the photos we've uploaded as part of a project page. If you're trying to upload a potential color combination, a picture of a swatch, it's totally fine for those pictures to be part of your project page. Just start the project tab for whatever project you're working on and upload those pictures, then they're ready to go into these message and discussion boards. Now when we take a look at my projects tab, I've got a little more posted. I still need to go in and finish my halibut sweater, and I've got a lot of other projects I need to get posted here. So this was just one step in starting that process. I thought I'd take you along with me for any of you that are interested in posting your own projects to Ravelry. Hopefully this has been a helpful resource. As always, if you have questions, ideas, things I missed, please let me know in the comments below, and I'm grateful you're here. I'm always happy to spend a little bit of time with you. And as always, happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy crafting to you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.